I never thought I'd receive another invitation from my family. 6 years had passed, measured not just in miles between Stuttgart and Virginia, but in the hollow silence that stretched across birthdays, funerals, and deployments. And then, one gray afternoon, a white envelope landed on my steel desk. Embossed edges, my name printed in full, Lieutenant General Rebecca Cole. I turned the envelope in my hand. The wax seal on the back was still intact, but I already knew what it held. I'd heard the whispers, the forwarded emails, the casual slip from an old classmate, Haley, my younger sister, the same one who once looked me in the eye and called me a disgrace, was getting married. And the groom, Major Andrew Foster, the man who owed me his life. It was like taking a blade to the ribs. I remembered my father's funeral, where I stood the entire time because no one had saved me a seat. I remembered my mother's words, sharp as glass. You shouldn't wear that uniform. It makes us look bad. I placed the invitation back on the desk. My quarters were as sterile as my relationship with them. Iron bed, rows of pressed uniforms, a locked trunk of memories no one touched. Discipline had been my shield, duty my substitute for family. And yet one small envelope threatened to unravel it all. A knock, 2 sharp raps. Simmons, my aide of nearly 2 decades, stepped inside. His eyes fell on the envelope. He didn't ask, he didn't need to. Foster, he said. I nodded. He sat down, arms crossed, voice low. The question isn't whether you should go. The question is, if you do, are you fighting the past or yourself? The words cut deeper than the invitation itself. I glanced out the window, where new recruits were shouting through drills, still too young to understand betrayal. For a moment, I envied them. After Simmons left, I opened my closet and pulled out the dress blues I hadn't worn since my father's burial. I smoothed the sleeves with shaking hands, tracing scars no one could see. My pulse was steady, but my stomach felt like lead. If I didn't show up this time, I would remain nothing more than the erased daughter, a ghost on the family tree. That invitation wasn't a request. It was a summons, not from them, from myself, and I knew the battlefield waiting for me wouldn't be dust and fire this time. It would be chandeliers, champagne, and the razor edge of laughter. My weapon wouldn't be a rifle. It would be the only thing they couldn't take from me. My honor. The e-ticket confirmation hit my inbox 30 seconds after I clicked purchase. Frankfurt to Dulles. One red eye across the Atlantic. The miles weren't the heavy part. It was the memories waiting at the other end. I paid extra for an empty seat beside me. I didn't want curious strangers. I didn't want polite small talk. I wanted silence, room to breathe, or to suffocate, depending on which part of me won out. As the jet lifted off, Stuttgart's city lights shrank beneath the wing. I closed my eyes, but sleep never came. Instead, Helmand came back, dust, blood, the jagged scream of metal. Foster frozen on a mine, my elbows grinding into gravel as I crawled toward him. His whisper still burned in my ear. I owe you my life. Now he was marrying my sister. Irony has its own way of scarring you. The flight attendant stopped at my row, eyeing the ribbons pinned to my jacket. "Champagne, ma'am?" she asked with a practiced smile. "Water," I said. My throat was already full. I didn't need bubbles to blur the edges of who I was flying toward. Hours dragged. The cabin lights dimmed. I pulled out my laptop, opened the after-action report from Helmand. Black and white words on a classified page. Major Andrew Foster evacuated after IED incident. Severe leg injury. Cold. Clinical. No mention of the crawl, the sweat, the trembling hands disarming the trigger. No mention of the debt. Just another file in a system that erases details that matter. I looked out the window. Clouds stretched below like a pale ocean. For a flicker of a second, I wondered if I was just another speck floating in emptiness. Then I tightened the belt across my chest. No, I carried stars on my shoulders. I wasn't invisible. We landed at Dulles 20 minutes early. The air smelled of sanitizer and waxed floors. I'd barely cleared customs when my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost let it ring. Almost. Funny, a familiar voice lilted through. "You actually came." Haley, sweet on the surface, steel underneath. "I didn't come to celebrate," I said flatly. "You didn't say a word for 6 years," she chirped back. "So this is progress. No apology, no hesitation, only control." "Don't wear the uniform," she added, amusement curling at the edges. "It's a wedding, not a parade." I ended the call without a word. My hand tightened around the phone, but my stride stayed steady. I hadn't flown across an ocean to be welcomed. I came to be seen, not as the erased daughter, not as the family shame, but as a soldier who had survived every battlefield, including the one named family. The taxi turned down a tree-lined street, dogwoods in bloom. Virginia spring always looked like a postcard, perfect, manicured, untouched. But I knew better. Postcards never show the cracks. The Cole house stood exactly as I remembered it. Red roof tiles, white shutters freshly painted, hedges trimmed like they were competing for inspection. Too polished, too pristine. The kind of perfection built to cover rot. I hauled my duffel up the steps. The porch light flickered on. The door opened. My mother Barbara stood there, pearls at her neck, hair pulled tight like she'd been at attention all her life. Her eyes swept over my dress blues, searching for flaws. "Rebecca," she said, voice clipped like issuing an order. "Please don't ruin this for Haley. No hug, no warmth, just terms of engagement." Inside, the house reeked of lemon polish. Same chandelier, same china cabinet, same airless silence pretending to be civility. The dining table was set for 15. My place card waited not near Haley, not in the center where photos would be taken, but at the far end, near the kitchen doors, where steam and chatter leaked out. Not a seat of honor, a seat of exile. Haley swept in a moment later, silk blouse shining, laughter too loud, arm linked with a cousin who didn't deserve it. Her eyes flicked toward me, brushed past without stopping, then snapped back to her circle. As if I were a shadow, not blood, Uncle Dean raised a glass. To love and new beginnings. Glasses clinked, wine flowed. At my end of the table, only water. When I asked the server, he glanced at his list. Non-drinking guest. A neat trick. Even my glass was proof I didn't belong. Retired colonel sitting near Barbara tilted his head, studying me. "You look familiar. Afghanistan, wasn't it?" Barbara cut in before I could answer. "Oh, Rebecca's been on security detail overseas. Guards doors, important ones, I'm sure." Haley smirked. "I bet the doors are very grateful." Laughter rippled down the table. I set my glass down carefully. My voice was calm, deliberate. The people I guard outrank everyone in this room. Silence bloomed sharp, unsettled. The smiles cracked. For the first time all evening, they remembered I wasn't just a shadow. Dinner carried on in forced quiet, silverware clinking like brittle bones. No one asked me another question. I was a ghost at their table. But ghosts have a way of chilling the air. That night, I stepped onto the porch. The light from the chandelier inside spilled onto the glass door, cutting the darkness. My family laughed in there, polished and perfect, pretending I didn't exist. But I stood outside, boots planted firm, breathing in the cold. And I knew this battle hadn't even begun. The church gleamed like a stage set. White lilies framed the altar, sunlight spilled through stained glass in gold and blue. Violin strings whispered overhead. Guests floated in polished shoes, and perfume brushing lint from lapels like they were rehearsing for a scene. At the entrance, a brass easel held the seating chart, thick cardstock, floral print, names arranged like ranks on parade. I scanned the list. Cousins, neighbors, plus ones, row after row. No Rebecca Cole. No General Cole. At the bottom corner, almost an afterthought, Cole table 12, Table 12, tucked behind a pillar near the emergency exit. Not close to the bride, not visible in the photos, not family. A footnote. A woman in lavender heels squealed when she found her name near the stage. Table 8, perfect view. She beamed as if she'd won something. I stared at my name again, bottom corner, hidden in shadow. My mother had mentioned it casually that morning while handing me fruit I didn't ask for. You'll be at table 12, out of sight. For everyone's sake. Barbara appeared at my side now, her beige suit blending into the cream walls. Her eyes scanned my uniform like it might stain the air. You look fine, she murmured. Just please, don't make this about you. It's Haley's day, not a request, an order. The ceremony began. Haley glided down the aisle in white silk, every eye on her, the applause swelling like a tide. Andrew stood tall beside her, his gaze sweeping the crowd until briefly it caught mine. A flicker, then gone. No nod, no smile. Just silence when the priest called for close family to step forward for the blessing. My body moved on instinct, muscles tightening to rise. But Barbara's hand landed on my sleeve, gentle as a trap. Don't confuse things, she whispered. This is Haley's moment. I sat, the music swelled, tears were dabbed, flashbulbs popped. And I remained in the pew, a soldier ordered into stillness. At the reception, table 12 was exactly as promised. Tucked behind a column near the catering door, linen paler than the rest, my name card printed small, R. Cole, no rank, no title, just 3 letters stripped down to nothing. The waiter poured wine around the table but skipped mine. Non-drinking guest, he explained, glancing at his list. I didn't correct him. Across the ballroom, Haley sparkled. She floated from table to table, kissed cheeks, twirled under chandeliers. Then she took the microphone, her smile glowing for the cameras. Thank you all for being here tonight, she sang. And look, we even have my big sister in the room. She traveled all the way from wherever she's stationed these days. Everyone, give it up for our family's silent gate guard. Laughter, not the warm kind, the sharp kind that slices before it fades. Barbara added her own line, voice crisp enough to carry. She may be the shame of this family, but at least she arrived on time. More laughter. Glasses clinked. I rose slowly, not with rage, but with inevitability, like a storm gathering over calm water. The room tilted, waiting, unprepared. For the first time in years, they were about to learn. Ghosts don't rise to haunt. Ghosts rise to claim their place. The Aspen Grove ballroom shimmered with golden light, chandeliers dripping like frozen waterfalls. From the doorway, it looked like the kind of place that could swallow you whole if you didn't belong. And that night, I didn't. The valet hadn't even looked at me twice when I handed over the keys. Inside, people were already laughing, raising glasses, hugging like we'd all been frozen in amber since 2003, and finally thawed. I stood there for a moment, scanning faces that used to fill the halls of Jefferson High. Some had gray at the temples now, others carried the soft edges of comfort. But the hierarchy was still the same. The golden ones in the center, the forgotten ones at the edges. And I was at the edge, always the edge. Anna, my mother's voice cut through the crowd. She stood near the photo wall, wine in hand, pointing out old pictures of my brother in his Harvard days. My father beamed beside her, the perfect supporting cast to David's legacy. You came, she said flatly, as though I'd wandered into the wrong party. My father gave me a quick glance and then looked past me, already searching for someone worth his attention. No hug, no smile, no acknowledgement that I'd flown across continents, carried medals in drawers they'd never display, and wore scars they'd never see. Where are you sitting? She asked, her tone polite but distracted. Table 14, I said quietly. She nodded, almost approving. Near the back, that makes sense. Then she drifted away. I walked alone, past tables gleaming with names written in cursive gold: Dr. Patel, Senator Ames, CEO Lynn. And then mine, Anna. Just Anna, no title, no rank. The seat cushions sunken, the centerpiece missing, as though the decorator had run out of effort by the time they reached me. I sat down, back straight, hands folded in my lap. Training, always training. The DJ's voice boomed across the room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the class of 2003. Tonight we celebrate 20 years of success, friendship, and family. Applause rippled like waves. Glasses clinked. My father leaned back, his arm around my mother, his laughter carrying across the room. The first toast came. Here's to the brightest stars of our class, the MC said. Some went corporate, some went creative, some even went into public service. Hey, did anyone here become a general? The room laughed lightly, like it was a harmless joke. But my father's voice rose above them all. If my daughter's a general, then I'm a ballerina. The laughter doubled. My mother sipped her wine, her lips curving into that sharp little smile she wore when the blade landed exactly where she wanted. She's always had a flair for dramatics, she added, probably still peeling potatoes somewhere on a base. The table howled. Even the DJ cracked a smile. And I sat there at table 14, spine rigid, face neutral, heart pounding so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. Not one person corrected them. Not one old classmate stood up and said, actually, she's been deployed. Actually, she saved lives. Actually, She outranks everyone in this room. Silence rolled heavier than the laughter. A slideshow flickered across the big screen, baby photos, prom night, graduations. Faces I once knew beamed back at the crowd. My brother's smile stretched wide on every other slide, my face missing. When a group photo of Model UN appeared, I was barely visible, blurred in the back row. Someone behind me muttered, "Didn't she drop out right after that?" I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. I remembered that day I gave the final speech, the one that won us first place. But they zoomed in on my brother instead, blazer too big, smile crooked, standing in the corner. He hadn't even spoken that day. I'd been erased. Not forgotten, erased. Carefully, deliberately, like scrubbing a stain from the family name. And the worst part, it worked. No one in that room knew me anymore, and none of them cared to ask. I stepped out onto the balcony, cool night air cutting through the heat in my chest. Inside, the laughter rolled on. My mother toasted, my father roared, my brother basked in the glow of his spotlight. From out here, it looked like a movie I'd been edited out of. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried in years. Somewhere between Kandahar and Kabul, I'd traded tears for silence. That quiet you build when the people you love teach you how to live without their approval. But silence that night felt different. It didn't feel like armor. It felt like consent. And for the first time, I wondered, maybe it was time for the silence to end. If you've ever sat at the edge of a room while the people closest to you laughed at your absence, you know how heavy silence can be. And if you believe those silences deserve to be broken, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Because what happened next, the sound that split the night sky, was louder than anything they could have imagined. The laughter still echoed off crystal and chandeliers. Haley stood in the spotlight, dress glittering, microphone balanced like a scepter. Every eye was on her, every joke a blade thrown my way. Even my big sister made it tonight, she teased, grinning. All the way from wherever she's stationed now, guarding doors, I guess. More laughter, polite claps. One or two guests shifted uneasily, but most smiled, complicit. I pushed back my chair and rose. Not fast, not angry, slow, steady like thunder rolling in before the lightning. The room stilled, forks suspended in midair. Then Andrew moved. The groom stepped away from the head table, his polished shoes striking the wood floor with deliberate weight. Every step echoed louder than the laughter had. Conversations cut off mid-word. Photographers swung their lenses. Haley's smile faltered. Andrew stopped in front of me, 1 pace away. Then, sharply, perfectly, he raised his hand in a crisp military salute. "Ma'am," His voice carried clear across the hall. Please forgive my wife. The silence was instant, suffocating. Haley's microphone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. Her face drained white, lips parted, but no words formed. Andrew turned toward the room, hand still at his brow. This, he declared, is Major General Rebecca Cole, my commanding officer, the woman who saved my life. Gasps. Not whispers, gasps, audible and raw. The ballroom shifted in a single breath. Tuxedos and sequins suddenly stripped of their smugness. Faces that had laughed minutes ago now stared, wide-eyed, caught between shame and awe. Barbara shot up from her chair, champagne spilling across the linen. Rebecca, she stammered, voice breaking, but the word dissolved into silence. Haley stumbled back, pale and shaking. The queen of the night looked like a child cornered, and then it spread. A retired colonel rose from the second row, shoulders squared, hand lifted in salute. Then a general. Then a woman in her 50s, posture betraying a career in uniform. One after another, the salutes rose, not rehearsed, not dramatic, but solemn acknowledgments slicing through the night. For the first time in 6 years, my name carried weight, not as an embarrassment, not as a punchline, but as truth standing upright in dress blues. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I simply stood, letting their stares shift from ridicule to reckoning. Andrew lowered his hand, spine straight, eyes steady on mine. He had given me the room. And the room would never be the same again. The ballroom had emptied into whispers and broken glass. Staff cleared plates, folded linens, swept away the wreckage of a night that had cracked open. I was heading toward the elevators when her voice cut through. Rebecca, we need to talk. Barbara stood in the hallway outside a side lounge, posture still rigid, but eyes unsettled. She ushered me inside. The room smelled of burnt coffee and furniture polish. 2 cups sat untouched on a low table, the steam long gone cold. She sat first, smoothing her blouse, fingers brushing the pearls at her neck. A tell she'd never broken. Pearls meant control. You silenced that room, she began, voice low. But you also stirred the press. They're circling already. If you care at all about this family, you'll help me manage this. Manage, I asked, or bury, she exhaled. A simple statement. That last night was a misunderstanding. That Haley was joking. That you came only to celebrate your sister. I leaned forward. You want me to mop up the mess after she humiliated me? Barbara's smile tightened, a politician's smile. Think bigger. Haley's career, the Cole name, our reputation, your father's legacy. Do you want the world to remember us as fractured? I let the silence stretch until it cut. Then, you didn't protect this family. You erased part of it. Her composure cracked just slightly. The pearls shifted against her throat as her hands trembled. I had to make choices, she said. Flawed, maybe. But I never stopped caring for you. I laughed once, sharp as broken glass. 6 years of silence, not a birthday, not a condolence. That's what you call caring. The air thickened. For the first time, she looked small, aging, weary, exposed. But the softness came too late. I stood, hand on the back of my chair. If anyone asks, tell them the truth, that you chose to erase me. Don't call it misunderstanding. Don't call it protection. Call it what it was. Her hand lifted toward me, shaky, searching for purchase. Rebecca, don't destroy this family out of anger. We're still your family. I looked down at that hand, then back into her eyes. Family doesn't stab you and call it love. If you want to keep your image, do it without me. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me. Inside, I imagined her pearls slipping loose one by one, a necklace finally breaking. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt free, and I swore to myself no one else would ever be cut out the way I had been. The hotel cafe was bright, too bright. The smell of burnt espresso clung to the air, but the tables gleamed like interrogation rooms. I sat near the window, untouched black coffee cooling in front of me. I wasn't here for caffeine. I was here for truth. Haley arrived 10 minutes late. Sunglasses indoors, hair swept into a sleek bun, pastel dress chosen for composure. But I noticed the tremor in her hand when she set her purse down. Her smile was tight, pasted on. Last night I went too far, she said quickly. It was just a joke. I slid a stack of papers across the table. She blinked, confused, then lifted the first page. The military whistleblower hotline report. Anonymous. Accusing me of falsifying deployment details, of inflating my role in Helmand. The report that had stalled my first promotion. Her smile flickered. So, that doesn't mean it was me. I placed another sheet on top. A linguistic analysis report. 96% match to her writing style. One word circled in red. Irregardless. You've used that word since high school essays, I said evenly. No one with clearance ever would. But you did. Haley's mask cracked. She leaned back, laugh brittle. Fine. Yes, I wrote it. Because I was sick of living in your shadow. You were Dad's pride, the golden soldier, the headline me. I was just the sister of Rebecca Cole. Her voice sharpened, desperation bleeding through. I wanted space to breathe. I wanted a life of my own. And the only way was to bring you down. I didn't flinch. You could have built your own light. Instead, you tried to bury me so you could glow brighter. You didn't just betray me, Haley. You betrayed yourself. She bristled, defiant even through the crack in her voice. And yet, here I am, the bride. You're still the outsider, so tell me, Rebecca, who really won? I leaned across the table, voice low, steady. Winners don't have to destroy family to feel tall. Winners can look in the mirror without choking on shame. Can you? Her eyes blinked fast. She grabbed her purse, pushed back her chair, heels striking the tile too hard. She didn't answer. She didn't look back. I sat in the silence she left behind, the report still on the table between us, not evidence anymore, just a mirror reflecting the rot she carried. Outside, Morning light flooded through the glass, landing on the cold coffee at my elbow. Bitter, untouched. Like the truth, it burned going down, but it was real. The rooftop bar was nearly empty, a pocket of quiet above the restless city. The wind tugged at my jacket as I stepped out onto the terrace. Neon lights blinked in the distance, but the space between us felt heavier than the skyline. Andrew was already there. He leaned against the railing, glass of amber liquor in his hand. His shoulders slumped in a way that betrayed years of fatigue rather than hours of celebration. This was not a man who had just said, "I do." This was a man cornered by the weight of his choices. "I didn't think you'd come," he said without turning. "You asked," I replied. My voice was flat, but my presence was answer enough. He finally faced me. He looked older than I remembered, not in his face, but in his posture. More tired, less armored. The memory of Helmand flickered between us, silent but unignorable. "You want to talk about that night?" I asked. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "That's old news." "Not to me." A pause stretched, the kind thick with words neither of us wanted to say. "I never told Haley," he admitted, eyes down. "About the minefield, about what you did. I knew she'd twist it, make it part of her fairy tale. She weaponizes stories. Yours deserved better." The wind shifted. For a moment, I almost believed him. "Then why marry her?" I asked, my tone sharper than the breeze. He exhaled, looking back down at the street far below. "Because she was easy. Because your family offered a clean, ordered life. I was tired of almost dying. I thought I wanted safe." "She's not safe," I said. "She's strategy." He let out a hollow laugh. "Yeah. I figured that out a week after the engagement." Silence pressed in again. I watched him, this man I had once dragged bleeding out of the dirt, now unraveling from choices he made with open eyes. "You know she sent the tip, don't you?" I asked finally. "The one that stalled my first star." His eyes closed. "I always suspected. I just didn't want to be sure." "I am." His grip on the railing tightened until his knuckles whitened. "I stood up last night because if I didn't, I'd become one of them," he said, finally meeting my gaze. For a moment, I saw the soldier I had once saved, not broken, but burdened. I didn't thank him. I didn't forgive him. I only said, "Don't ever let my name protect yours again." The wind carried the words away, but the weight stayed. Airports always smelled the same: burnt coffee, disinfectant, waxed floors. I was 20 minutes early for my flight, duffel slung over my shoulder, head down. Just another traveler, or so I thought. The first camera flash hit near security, then another. A semicircle of microphones and smartphones closed in. "General Cole, do you have a comment about the wedding incident? Were you aware of your sister's remarks? Did the groom serve under your command?" The TSA officer moved to push them back, but I raised a hand. "Not yet." To the side stood a flimsy podium, the kind airports use for lost and found announcements. Behind it, a wrinkled flag. I walked toward it. The crowd hesitated, then quieted. "I know why you're here," I began, voice steady. "You want a headline, a sharp quote. something to sell. But this isn't a story about a wedding. This is a story about people erased from their own families, pens scratched, cameras blinked. I continued. For years, I fought wars abroad while being erased at home. I wore stars on my shoulders while being told I stained the family name. That silence nearly swallowed me, and I know I'm not the only one. I lifted a single page from my folder. As of today, I'm launching the Resilience Foundation. It will provide 3 things: legal protection when lies or leaks threaten a career, psychological support from professionals who understand the military, career shielding, an independent review before promotions or discipline, so betrayal doesn't derail service. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. One young reporter asked, "Are you saying your family sabotaged your career?" I let a beat of silence hang, then shrugged. Connect your own dots. I've already connected mine. The questions flew faster, but I stayed grounded. This isn't revenge, I said, it's visibility. If you've been cut out of photos, dropped from seating charts, turned into the punchline of your own family, we see you, you matter. From the edge of the crowd, a young cadet stepped forward. His uniform still crisp, his salute nervous but sharp. I returned it. No words were needed. The cameras caught it anyway. I closed with one line. I am not my family's failure. I am their silence, made visible. Then I stepped away from the podium, straight through the barrage of microphones. Not running, not hiding, just walking toward my gate, leaving behind a headline they hadn't expected. The Pentagon briefing room was colder than memory, navy carpet, polished wood, brass insignias, glinting under fluorescent light. Rows of generals, civilian advisors, congressional staffers sat with arms folded, notebooks ready. Power doesn't shout in rooms like this. It watches. It waits. I stood behind a steel lectern. On the screen behind me, the title glowed in stark black letters: Resilience Protection Protocol. No slogan, no decoration, just the problem and the solution. We train soldiers to survive war, I began, voice even. But we do almost nothing to prepare them for betrayal at home. When sabotage comes from a spouse, a sibling, or a so-called friend, careers collapse in silence. The system shrugs, and we lose good people not to battle, but to betrayal. Slide 1. Anonymous survey data. Bars rising red on the screen. Hundreds of officers reporting delayed promotions, tainted records, reputations gutted by whispers. Most of it labeled personal matters. Slide 2. Complaints buried at command level. Over 60% never escalated, stamped with the phrase, "Not mission related." I let that hang. Anything that robs a soldier of purpose is mission related. Slide 3. Suicide data linked to character defamation. The numbers spoke for themselves. The room grew quieter. Then the framework. 3 layers of protection: immediate legal counsel, military lawyers deployed at the first sign of sabotage. Mental health support, specialists trained to handle betrayal trauma. Career shielding, an independent panel to pause promotions or disciplinary actions until the facts are clear. Murmurs spread. Pens scratched faster. Some nodded, some frowned. Then the hand went up. Admiral Casey Hner, silver hair, rigid jaw, the kind of man who called male officers passionate and female officers emotional. "With respect, General," he said, "this sounds personal, not structural." I met his gaze, steady. "All policy is personal, Admiral, or it's propaganda." Silence. A few heads turned. A congresswoman at the back leaned forward, smiling faintly. I closed the folder. "We have protocols for bullets and bombs. We need protocols for betrayal. If we don't, we will keep bleeding talent, quietly, invisibly, until there's nothing left to lose." I stepped back from the lectern. No applause. Not in this room. But the Undersecretary of Defense folded his hands on the table and said evenly, "We'll fund a pilot program." 5 words, that was enough. I had walked into the Pentagon carrying scars. I walked out carrying a policy. The road back to my childhood home felt smaller than I remembered, lined with tidy lawns and blooming azaleas. To anyone else, it was a picture of suburban peace. To me, it was a mausoleum of silence. The house stood unchanged, shutters painted bright, driveway spotless, hedges trimmed within an inch of their lives. But inside, I knew the walls groaned with things unsaid. Barbara opened the door. No pearls this time, no immaculate suit. Just a pale cardigan, hair pulled back thin and uneven. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "Rebecca, come in." The living room smelled of lemon polish, same as always, but beneath it lingered something hollow. We sat across from each other. She folded her trembling hands in her lap. "I didn't know how to protect you without erasing you," she said, eyes on the carpet. "I thought if I kept you distant, the family could survive. But in doing that, I destroyed us." I held her gaze. "Didn't protect anyone. You erased your own daughter." Her shoulders sagged. For once, the mask slipped. She looked less like the commanding matriarch and more like an old woman tired of her own performance. Then footsteps creaked on the stairs. Haley appeared halfway down, robe loose, hair tangled, eyes rimmed red. No longer the sparkling bride, just a girl hollowed out by her own choices. "Rebecca," her voice cracked. "I don't even know who I am anymore." I stood, meeting her gaze. "You never had to be anyone but yourself. But you chose to tear others down just to stand taller. And now you're left with nothing but the wreckage of that choice." Haley clutched the railing, tears threatening, but I didn't move toward her. Redemption wasn't mine to hand out. I turned back to Barbara. "You asked what you can do. Tell the truth. When people ask why I don't come home, don't call it complicated. Don't soften it as misunderstanding. Tell them you made a choice. And so did I." Her hand lifted, reaching for me like she had when I was small. "Rebecca, can you forgive me?" I shook my head. "Forgiveness erases. I won't erase anymore. I'll remember so no one else has to go through what I did." I picked up my duffel. My boots thudded against the floorboards as I walked to the door. No hugs, no tears, just distance, clear and final. Outside, the air smelled fresher, sharper. Behind me, the house still glowed with its false perfection. But to me, it was nothing more than a museum of silence. This time, when I walked away, I knew one thing for certain. I would never come back. The community center was nothing like a ballroom. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Mismatched folding chairs wobbled on the linoleum floor. The smell of burnt coffee clung to the air. No chandeliers, no champagne, just 30 people, battered but unbroken. On the wall behind me hung a crooked banner. Resilience Foundation. We don't erase the wounded. We empower them. A teenage girl in the second row gripped a stack of letters in her hands. Her voice shook as she spoke. My sister was discharged after reporting harassment. They said she was too emotional. Now no one will take her case. The room held its breath. I stepped closer, steady. Bring those letters to us. From this moment, your sister isn't alone anymore. Her shoulders eased, the weight slipping just a little. A middle-aged man stood next. Former soldier by posture, civilian by the quiet in his eyes. My son was told to quit if he couldn't man up. They called him unstable when he pushed back. He heard your speech at the Pentagon. It was the first time he smiled in months. I nodded. Tell him he wasn't wrong. We're finally listening. The air shifted. Not applause, not cheers, just recognition. The kind that runs deeper than noise. Someone's phone buzzed. A video of my airport press conference was going viral, thousands of views turning into millions. The room murmured. I let it be. Let them watch, I said. This time, they don't get to look away. I closed the gathering with one line. You are not dramatic. You are not unstable. You are not too much. You are witnesses. And from now on, witnesses will not be silenced. They will be leaders. Sparkle's epilogue. When I left my family's house, I carried no pearls, no heirlooms. Just a duffel and the choice to never erase myself again. They used to call me the shame of the Cole name. Now, when they whisper my name, it carries weight, not because I demanded it, but because truth made it heavy. Justice didn't arrive in the form of revenge. It came through presence, steady, unshakable, undeniable. I didn't reclaim a seat at their table. I built a new table, one where no one is hidden at table 12. And as I looked across the faces at the foundation, veterans, cadets, survivors, daughters and sons, I realized I wasn't speaking as the forgotten sister anymore. I was speaking as the one who walked through fire and came back carrying the torch. A torch not to light my own way, but to make sure no one else would ever walk invisible again.